Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us on Encore. Coming up on today's show. French-American jazz pianist and composer Dan Tepfer has shared the stage with some of the leading lights in jazz, from Lee Konitz to Pharoah Sanders. His acclaimed album Goldberg Variations saw the prize-winning performer take a classic to new places. A freewheeling creative with a talent for improvisation and astrophysics, Tepfer's curiosity has now gravitated toward capturing the song of planets. He's here with us today. Hello, Dan. Welcome to Encore.
Hi, Miriam. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, we've caught you in the middle of a series of concerts here in Paris. Now, you were born in France, but your parents are American. So what's the most American thing about you, Dan, and what's the most French thing about you?
Oh, boy. That's a tough one. I really see myself as a product of exactly how I grew up, which is I grew up in Paris, going through the absolutely standard French education system. But my folks are American, so it's kind of a combination of values. I think I have a kind of a maybe American streak in that I love to do my own thing and a little bit individualistic, but I also have all those kind of subtleties of caring about philosophy and weird cultural questions that you have to have when you grow up in France.
You've said that growing up in a bilingual household influenced the way you express yourself and ultimately shaped your music. How so?
Well, I think, I read a really interesting study about bilingual children. If you test really, really small children for their capacity to understand abstraction, so, the fact that like a certain word isn't the thing that it identifies, but is actually an abstraction of the thing and is separate from the thing. If you test how early they're capable of getting that, bilingual children have that from a very early age, naturally, because that chair and chaise are two signifiers for the same thing. So I think growing up the way I did and having a very clear understanding that culture is not something given, but is just kind of an option, and you can have different cultures that ultimately point towards the same humanity. I think that's something that has made me approach art in the way that I have.
It's made you a little bit flexible, a little bit malleable.
I think flexible and
there.
And with a little bit more perspective, maybe. I'm always very aware that things could be a certain way, but they could also be another way.
Well, on that note, Dan, putting the Tepfer touch, as I'm calling it, on the classics has become something of a trademark of yours. That's pretty risky stuff. Tell me, what makes you want to improvise around something as perfect as Bach, for example?
That's a wonderful question. And I think, Bach, it just doesn't get any more perfect. So what I've done in the Goldberg Variations is that I play the Goldberg Variations as written by Bach. This is just this absolutely fantastic set of music, an aria, which is the theme at the beginning, followed by 30 variations on this theme, and closing again with the aria, one of the greatest pieces of music ever. And so what I do there is I play those variations as they're written, and after each one, I improvise a response, and it becomes a kind of a dialogue with Bach, who wrote these almost 300 years ago. And to answer your question, there are two ways of answering it. The real answer is that I just started studying this music in my early 20s when I was studying jazz, and I still consider myself first and foremost a jazz musician. And it just kind of stuck with me. I could never let it go. I kept wanting to come back to it and learn it better and study it more. And as I was doing that, being the improviser that I am, I wanted to take Bach's ideas that he presents so clearly in these variations and use them to improvise. And it's just a very natural thing for me to do. But I think, the other way to answer this is that as an artist, the most precious thing we have to offer is the kind of prism of how we see the world. And I think the way we react to things is the most important. So
well, let's have a look now. Let's take a look and see how you are reacting to Bach. Let's see you in action. This is an improv piece around the Goldberg Variations. Well, here's something that not everyone might know about you, Dan, is that you actually studied astrophysics. And right now you're exploring the music around planets, and you're actually taken to programming that. Can you explain a little bit how that works?
Well, we were just talking about Bach, and one of the most fascinating things about him is that his music is a real combination of the algorithmic and the spiritual. There's obviously this profound emotionality about his music and profound spirituality, but it's all structured around rules that he adheres to, really pretty seriously. And so that's something that has been really fruitful for me in my own music.
So these are things that you've programmed.
Yeah. So
can you explain what it means?
Well,
exactly?
This is a harmony, and this is actually, so that's a minor triad. So that's the sound. Bo bo be bo bo. That's a minor triad.
So that's a visual representation.
It's a visual
of
representation,
that sound.
an exact visual representation. There's no kind of interpretation here. It's if you take the harmonic ratios of the three tones that make up that harmony, and map them on the three axes in 3 dimensions, that's what you get.
And you're going to be incorporating this into your performances? How are you going to be using
I have
these?
been,
Or is
yeah.
this for fun that you
Well,
make these?
everything is for fun.
Yeah.
But I have been. I've been developing a project that I call Acoustic Informatics, for that idea of acoustic music, but that's relating to computers and programming. And I've been doing concerts of this music more and more, where I have I've written computer programs that react to the music that I'm playing on the same piano that I'm playing. So the piano is actually playing all by itself around what I'm improvising, and it's all in real time. So there's nothing pre-planned. It's all a real-time response to what I'm playing. And since I'm improvising, I'm also responding to it. So it becomes this dialogue with the machine. And I've also written computer programs that generate visuals from all this musical data that I'm generating while improvising.
So you've really got both sides of the brain going here, haven't you, Dan?
Well, I love that image, actually. And I think, apparently if you put a professional musician in a brain scan, it's one of the few professions that you can immediately tell apart from other professions, because the organ of the brain that connects the two hemispheres, from what I've read, is more developed than for other professions.
Well, let's take a look at your upcoming projects. You've got an album coming out this year with the veteran alto sax player Lee Konitz. He's also somebody that you perform with frequently, and somebody that you look up to as a musician. What's it like jamming together? What's the best advice he's ever given you?
The best advice that Lee has ever given me is to listen. He likes to point out that if you take the letters of listen and rearrange them, they spell silent. He's a very profound listener. Nothing he plays is ever gratuitous or ever feels like he's showing off. It's all very much in the moment and very much a response to what's going on around him. And I think if we all had that approach to everything in our lives, the world would be a much more peaceful place. And have more harmony, because ultimately this is what we were talking about, things being in harmony with each other.
It's a really beautiful sentiment, Dan. Thank you for sharing. And now let's move on to some other harmonies, our albums of the week. Let's begin with The Weeknd. He dropped a surprise 6-song mini record called My Dear Melancholy, and it's as dark as it is deep. Abel Tesfaye takes us back to his musical roots and into the bristling belly of his recent heartache. The internet is buzzing with speculation that this one is all over his breakups with Selena Gomez and Bella Hadid. The only cameo comes courtesy of French DJ Gesaffelstein. Well, it also boasts a slew of producing talent from Daft Punk to Skrillex. Let's hear a cut. This is Call Out My Name.
I want you to stay.
Moving on now to another singer who is spinning heartbreak. Australian pop icon Kylie Minogue is back with Golden. Kylie says she was meant to be a one-hit wonder, but destiny and a bit of elbow grease took her down a very different path. 14 albums and 31 years later, she's still going strong. Just ahead of her 50th birthday, Golden is all about putting herself up on a mantle of self-love and learning the art of acceptance. This is Dancing.
I'm gonna give it all I've got, and when they ask me who could ask for more, I can't stand still, I won't slow down. When I go out, I wanna go out dancing. When I go out, I wanna go out dancing.
And finally, 30 Seconds to Mars are back with their 5th studio record, America. Now, at the MTV Europe Music Awards ceremony just a few months ago, frontman Jared Leto hailed his country as the land of immigrants. The band launched a global campaign with different versions of the artwork. Fans are able to create their own version of it online. It features collabs with ASAP Rocky, Halsey and Zed. We're going to leave you with Walk on Water now, a clip from that record. Thank you very much, Dan, for joining us here on the program and sharing everything from astrophysics to jazz to classic Bach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Do check in with Dan online for the next day's next tour stops. Remember our website. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. Do stick around. There's more news coming up here on France 24 right after this.